here we are again, another rip-roaring special edition of A Quantum View. I'm your host, Chris Taylor. We have got a panel in front of us. We did this about 3 or 4 weeks ago when the storms ran through Florida and Pyramid 1 was on the ropes power-wise. And Zach and Denice were graceful enough to allow us to use their Zoom platform to do a quantum view. And we had so much fun, we're going to do it again. And here we are. The show is going to be all about extraterrestrial experiences. Everybody that we've got here today has had some kind of experience, and the big experience is the ECETI experience. We've got Holly Cook, my wonderful co-host on my show, is here again. Ken Rohla. Ken Rohla was a guest on A Quantum View a while back, and we had a wonderful conversation. I didn't know it was going to go where it did, Ken. It was an awesome show. Jason Quitt is going to talk about his new book and also some experiences from ECETI. And we've also got Barry Littleton along. He's somebody new, somebody new along that's going to give us some of his experiences. So why don't we get started now? The whole concept of ET and disclosure. So now anybody can go onto the internet and look at multiple plethora of videos about ET, UFOs, aliens, disclosure, this, that, and the other thing, and take what they want from it. So in my view, disclosure has already happened, okay? If you're looking for any kind of information, it's there. Now, I don't pay a lot of attention to a lot of people. I like to kind of stay in my own little world, my own little corner, and whatever comes my way, comes my way. My thing is the reptilians. Those are the ones that I'm always battling when I'm doing energy healings and clearings. Those are the guys that are involved, okay? Now, if you look on the internet, there's lots of stuff about the gray aliens, which to me, they seem kind of docile, a little wimpy almost, maybe. So now, having said that, if you go a little further, one person that really stands out to me is Stephen Greer. Dr. Stephen Greer. He does lengthy presentations about the whole concept of ET and how they've affected humanity for so many years, and he gets into all the conspiracy with JFK and Elemental P and everything that's involved with conspiracy seems to have some kind of ET concept to it. Holly, what's your take on Stephen Greer? Is he good or is he bad?
You know, I actually had a 5E experience a few years ago at Contact in the Desert when Stephen Greer came and he did his whole 5E or contact with the fifth element. And I actually had an experience through his meditation. And then after that, you know, I've just heard so many behind the scenes stuff that he's bad. I've heard he's good. You know, I think he brings a lot of information forth. And there's a little part of me that, I mean, he does kind of have a different personality, but there's a little part of me that thinks that he might be being character assassinated because of some of the stuff that he has brought forth. But I will say the meditations that he goes, the 5E experience is really amazing. And I've been able to call in crafts from using his technique. So good or bad, he's giving us the ability to call in crafts much easier.
I think, you know, I mean, everybody's got their opinion about a certain person. Oh, David Icke, this, Corey Good, that. I mean, there's so much banter going on the internet, and certain people with certain radio shows that tend to go a little further with that, maybe to get more followers or something. I don't know. Anyways, so ultimately, you know, Holly, you've had an experience with him. He resonates with me. Okay, I mean, he number one, he's a professional. He's a doctor. Okay, and we all bash doctors, but that doesn't matter. He is professional. He presents himself very well, and he does come across as somebody who's not feeding a line of garbage. Ken, your point of view about the subject at hand.
Well, I have wondered these things in the past too about Stephen Greer, because I've seen him putting out a lot of great information, which, you know, makes me feel that he's doing a lot of benefit for humankind. But at the same time, having had my own encounters with reptilians, including physical contact with them, and being familiar with them and their ways, even the benevolent ones, they have certain characteristics. And I see a lot of those characteristics in Stephen Greer. And not that he's reptilian necessarily, but I would say, from my perspective in observing him, and I have not met him in person, but from having observed him and also knowing people who have been very close to him, that the people that were close to him that have known him for a long time say he's changed a lot since they knew him back, say, in high school or college. But he has a lot of telltale, I would say, reptilian traits from my viewpoint. And so I would suspect, I think that he is benevolent. I think that he's doing good things for humanity, but I think he has a very heavy reptilian influence affecting him. And those reptilians, even benevolent ones, they have certain characteristics like power. You know, they're very, very much into power and strength. They value it. Even if they're using it for, let's say, benevolent purposes for humanity, they value hierarchy, they value strength. You know, I was surprised a few years ago to see Stephen Greer carrying a pistol, doing YouTube videos. Those kinds of things, organization-wise, hierarchy, also having fairly expensive events that he puts on. You know, I consider going to some of his events, but they're very pricey, thousands of dollars. And that also is a very typical of a reptilian mindset. So I would say, from my impression, that he's not reptilian, although he looks an awful lot like a reptile that I've encountered. So maybe he's a shapeshifter, but or my impression is that he's simply, because he is interacting with reptilians in some form or fashion, that they're having a strong influence on him.
So yeah, some kind of takeover, some kind of mind control, possibly a directive. When I'm doing my dowsing lately, I'm getting a lot of information about white reptilians, so possibly a benevolent one. To me, you know what, you're a reptilian, get out of here. You're just causing us too much trouble. Now let's. I don't want this to be a Stephen Greer show. I don't want to, you know, too much on that. I do respect that guy. He presents very well, but I never knew about his prices. And
yeah, it sounds like we couldn't afford him anyway.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, anybody. Yeah, you're right, Ken. Anybody who's very much into taking power, greed. Look at Harvey Weinstein. Oh, goodbye, Mr. Reptilian. You were caught, man. You're blasted. Good old Harvey Weinstein is now done. So we found a big reptilian right there. You got Hollywood, you got power, you got greed, you got money, you got sex, you got power over women. I mean, that's typical reptilian right there. So Harvey Weinstein, goodbye. Now let's go on a little bit about some experiences within ECETI. I want to bring Barry Littleton on. Barry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've been an experiencer my whole life, which has included extraterrestrial intelligences, different beings, a lot of which are interdimensional. So it's kind of what got me brought to ECETI. I went there for the last and presented the last two annual conferences they had there. So that was something different. That was the first, excuse me, quote unquote UFO conference I've been to. So it was much a different experience, but also the first time I'd been to that part of the United States, and I was somewhat unprepared for the remote nature of the ranch itself. So that's kind of how I came into that.
We're ready to go camping, eh?
No, sir. I told them actually one of the things of me speaking was I wanted to be in one of the cabins, and then they put me in this cabin in the back, one of the urns, and that's really when strange things started happening to me, both the first year I was there and this year as well. So,
What kind of things did you experience at ECETI?
Well, the first thing was I don't sleep well, so I tend to be up at night. And I'd say between 3 and 4 a.m. there, 3 to 3:30, it's very, very active there in what they call the field of dreams, where it's actually facing Mount Adams there. So I started seeing some ships that were coming up very close at 3 o'clock in the morning. All right, I'm staying out there with a friend of mine from New Zealand, and we're kind of having an experience in that way. And then I'd say just after the conference was actually over, I was walking around with a friend out there towards what they call the Pleiadian Circle. And I saw something that kind of, I've been having experiences my whole life, but at this point in my adult life, they're not as physical as they used to be. So I thought I was maybe past that until I went out to the ECETI Ranch. The second experiences was actually a gentleman and I were standing there, and we witnessed a ship that started morphing on the other side of Mount Adams, which is called Sleeping Lady. It's a mountain range right there you can see. And this ship starts morphing, goes into 5 stars, back into 1, goes elongated, back into 1, and it starts actually descending behind the mountain there, the mountain range, what's called I think Flathead. It's one of the peaks there. And it goes down, and then suddenly I can see it again. So I'm seeing this light, what appears to be through the mountain, to where I thought maybe my ocular was off and I'm actually descended in front of the mountain and I just wasn't seeing it correctly. Then it comes up and goes back down. Now the gentleman that worked there, I was standing there with, Albert, he starts hyperventilating when we're watching this. I didn't say anything to him just in case the air mountain has got to me or something's wrong with my brain. That type of delusion is not shared, you know? So after it comes back up and goes back down again, I can see it through the mountain. I ask him, what are you seeing? And he says, it's impossible. Please tell me. He says, I'm seeing that through the mountain. Is this some type of holographic projection? And he starts hyperventilating, you know? So that was the first year I was there. And to be honest with you, that experience alone left me dumbfounded. It pushed my knowledge of the holographic principle, of the holographic universe, to the brink.
You couldn't have hit it closer to the nail than that with the holograms. You know, you can just go on the internet and search for holographic projections, and you can see some stuff that looks very, very real. I mean, the concept is we are a hologram. Now, to elaborate on that, today I started dowsing, and I got a message that we're now allowed to connect to our real self. To me, that says the virtual self is now out of the picture. We can now connect to our real self. And I'm still not completely sure what that means. All I know is that there is a holographic virtual version of us that is in play, that is being manipulated. And the real self is something that's going to be more sovereign. So for that to come up and into play, I've never researched that. I've never gotten there. But the hologram, very much so. Our brains can project holograms. We can create all of these types of things. So the whole mountain range is a vortex of portals. Okay, and last time we had a meeting like this talking about ECETI, I did some dowsing right here, and we found that all the different mountains are different portals to different places. So to see through the mountain, you're definitely seeing through a hologram.
Mm-hmm. You know, you're a quantum healer, is that correct?
Correct.
When I first saw your name, and so I kept getting the quantum hologram theory of consciousness, which I think needs to be examined much more right now, especially when we're thinking about how these intelligences interact with us through the divine field, how they interact with our brain. Very, very real, you know? Yeah,
we're getting into the higher subconscious, the higher will, all of these higher areas that are being taken advantage of. Now I'm going way back into first creation of someone. Because at one time we were not human. We were a reptilian. We were something else. And in our first creation, we need to connect that up to source in order to play the game. So we're finding a lot of that stuff. Now, Jason, last time we were on, we got deep into a lot of stuff. Do you have any kind of new findings? Anything you want to throw at us?
Well, you know, going back even to the Stephen Greer thing, it seems to be this big push right now for this nuts and bolts type of UFO culture. So it's very much like these are beings from outer space. They have technology that we could reverse engineer. And then now we're going to create these UFOs and start releasing them to the public. When you go to ECETI, or even when I'm looking out in the backyard up in Canada here, these ships that I'm seeing are not nuts and bolts. Most of the phenomena is, I would say, extra dimensional, and they kind of pop in and out of reality. So there's nothing to capture with these things. And what Barry was talking about, where he can actually see this ship and it's separated in different lights and it went behind the mountain. It's almost like, are you actually seeing it with your physical eyes? Or is it some type of higher dimensional projection that's being created in your mind and created in the minds of everyone around? So if you took a camera and try to take a picture, it may not show up, but you can see it very vividly and clearly with depth perception. So you could put your hand in front of your eye and you'll block that sensory. So we're trying to, I would say, with Stephen Greer and all these people, even Tom DeLonge, who recently came out with To the Stars Academy, they're focusing very much on the nuts and bolts. And I think that's kind of a deception for us. Because once we start seeing what these things really are and how they interact, even with our consciousness, where, you know, we can go out in the field, like Holly said, start meditating and calling on these ships, and suddenly they're in front of us and we can see them and they pop in and out of existence.
So
there's something else.
Manifesting them, right?
Yeah.
Holographically manifesting them through hysteria, through hype. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah. In fact, if you get a group of people together and they're all complete believers and they want to go out and see a UFO, I'm pretty sure something will manifest. It's the same thing where you're in a large congregation at a church and everybody wants the person on stage to get healed, and then the priest touches them and suddenly they're healed. It's the perception of the group mind that is actually creating this co-created manifestation through this holographic state.
Now, one thing that we're going to elaborate on that. One thing that I have found is a lot of people, when I do my healing work, a lot of people come to me with vision problems or sight problems, with problems with the eyes, macular degeneration, cataracts, such and such. And one thing I do find is that there are dimensional beings that can use our visual system to see around us. Mm-hmm. So that causes a stress. That causes a lot of problems back and forth with energy in the eyes, and it could wear them out. Let's say. So what's to say that some Yahoo species can say, oh, they want to see a UFO. Well, let's implant something in their holographic brain and make something happen. I mean, you almost have to consider absolutely everything that's possible. I mean, that people are seeing these things left, right, and center. Let me go back. I mean, there are probably a lot of these things manifested through our hype. Okay, we want to see one of these things, boom, there they are. Somebody I camp with who has no clue about spirituality, no clue about existences, another dimension, no clue about none of this stuff that I do or anything. He's a bus driver. Okay, he's a bus driver. Him and a few friends many years ago were taking a tractor out of the field, and they all look, and 50 yards away, there's a UFO. Okay, green mist coming off it. They all skedaddled. They didn't manifest nothing. All of a sudden, they look, and there it is.
Yeah.
So there has to be nuts and bolts.
Oh, yes, there is. There is. But I'm saying that there's so much more to the phenomenon that we can't just focus on one small area of it. In fact, we live in a world, and this is kind of like the shamanic perspective, we live in a world where there's spirits and dimensional beings around us all the time. We just can't see and interact with them from this physical state. When we were at ECETI, when we walk those grounds, and I'm sure Barry and Holly can tell you this too, I can feel them walking with you. They're on the grounds, even though you can't see them. And I think I told this story. I don't know if I told it on here, but when I was in the medicine wheel on the ranch, and I was sitting and meditating, and I got up to leave the medicine wheel, a being grabbed me by the shoulder and violently pulled me back into the medicine wheel and sat me down. Now, I couldn't see them with my eyes, but the definite pressure of a hand on me and a pulling back is undeniable. There's something there that wanted me to stay there for a longer time. So these invisible worlds, I believe when you go to these sites that are very powerful vortex sites, you can actually interact more with this invisible nature around us, and they're starting to interact with you. So I think that we just need a broader definition of what these UFOs actually are that go beyond the nuts and bolts.
So of course, the conspiracy theorists and all of us say, well, what about the military? Does anybody on the panel have a lot of experience working with military, dark ops?
I have some, not personally being in them, but I've known people who have worked in them.
So
I know something about this technology, these technologies.
Yeah. So the technology, I mean, it has to be there that the government can make a lot of this happen too. Now we can go off into the whole concept of microwave technology. How do you think all these fires in California started? It's all microwaved. And I'm going to back off for a second. I got a client who actually was hit by one of these microwave weapons, and the burn on this person's back is not a sunburn. It is not something that she touched a hot element. And I've seen the picture of it. It's like, oh my goodness, look at this thing. And the marks it left was incredible. It was about the size of a dinner plate on this person's back, and it was, to me, it was a bigger awakening that something's going on here. And she was in LA. She was in California. So the government, the military, are taking a very, very big hit on the conspiracy front. What any thoughts on that, Ken?
Yeah, I was drilled heavily when I started consciously encountering reptilians and other ETs in the physical. They actually drilled me over and over again about going within and working on myself and developing discernment and feeling, particularly as a man, to really feel things and trust my feelings. And I spent years, learning to do that because of exactly what Jason said. It's not just this physical hardware zipping through outer space, coming to our planet, flying saucers or whatever. You have a lot of different kinds of phenomena going on here on Earth. You've got military projects, all kinds of covert stuff that is from humans. You've got some from this planet that is non-human, from inside the Earth. You've got extraterrestrial stuff. You have interdimensionals, very advanced, let's say what we would call extraterrestrials or interdimensionals, that don't need technology to transport themselves or project themselves. This has been my experience with these reptilians. They can project themselves holographically. They don't need a ship. And so what's important, I think, for us is to develop discernment as to what's going on and the nature of what's going on by the tried and true methods that great teachers have always taught. Go within, work on yourself, do meditation, do emotional clearing work. And the more that you clear yourself and resolve your own internal issues, the more clarity you get and the better your bullshit meter becomes. And then you are able to discern, and also, good old-fashioned knowledge and information. What I found is, in my experience, because of the things I was interested in, what I've worked on and what I've spent my life doing, it attracts people and events and things that serendipitously give me information about the nature of these things. For example, with anti-gravity flying saucer time travel technology, I've encountered government scientists and private scientists that have developed these kinds of technologies and tell me how they work and those kinds of things. That would never have happened had I not been the person I was, focused on the things I was focused upon. But I think the important thing for average people here is to do what great teachers have always said: go within, know thyself, develop discernment and clarity, stay out of fear. And when you do that, you can discern much better the nature of what's going on.
Exactly. You know, when people ask me, how come when I'm working with all this ET stuff, how come I don't get hit? How come I don't get attacked by it? And I simply say, I don't fear it. No fear. That's simple.
Exactly. It's really, I make the analogy with people. It's kind of like, you know, you could choose to go into a crack den in a really bad neighborhood and hang out. And your experience doing it, I mean, I've done this kind of stuff. I've lived with homeless people in an irrigation pipe in Arizona for a few weeks. I've stayed with homeless people and done all kinds of things that potentially could get me into great harm. But I never had any problems because of how I carried myself and how I related to people. And I also stayed out of fear and exuded love. And so it's the same thing with reptilians or interdimensionals or whatever you want to call these different types of beings. There are a lot of different kinds of consciousness and beings in the universe. But when you stay out of fear and you don't treat them in a fearful way, then things work out. You don't have to worry about being attacked. And
that's exactly it. Barry, I see a big light bulb over your head. You want to jump in on this one, don't you?
You know, I will say this. The second time I was out there this year, one of the first things I saw late at night, well, actually, where everybody's sky watching out there, which is with a regular pair of binoculars, good binoculars, but they weren't infrared, which is there's a dimensional door there, which glows a lot, all right? Right below that, I see these lights. It almost looked like a disco ball or a processor underneath the ice. I kept seeing it again and again. I watched this for 45 minutes. I passed it to somebody, everyone's seeing it, all right? To me, that reminded me of a processor. And I find it very interesting that a lot of the clairvoyants out there were constantly seeing a grid around them during meditations and during other times. Now, what I'm seeing is some type of a device out there that is scanning, not just telepathically scanning us, probably our soul life memories as well. And it produces some type of an effect that furthers our consciousness. And I swear what it's using is some type of an orb technology. Orbs are seen out there all the time. And once you get one of these orbs in our biofield, it can affect our perception holographically, all these different ways. And I think what we have is a device out there from when Earth was still a type 1, type 2 civilization that is still functioning. Like science fiction calls a Bracewell probe. 2001, that movie, remember, it came to Europa and to Moon. But what about the devices that are still on Earth functioning like that, as you kind of said? I think Mount Shasta is another one. Anyone that goes out to SETI, if you're open, you have some type of an experience that takes your consciousness forward. Like example, Sasquatch. Everybody seems to have a Sasquatch experience out there. I did. It's very interesting, you know.
Yeah, I want to have a beer with one day and see what they got to say. I have a client actually who's going to be communicating with the Sasquatch, with Yeti, to gain some knowledge as to how they defeated the reptilians, how they broke away from them. So we're working with him on Friday. We're going to be getting some interesting information. I meet all kinds of people, let me tell you, all over the world, all kinds of people, all kinds of different stories, and you guys are no different, that's for sure. Now, Holly, we as practitioners, we see a lot of things that occur from people who let's say are in contact with a lot of ET, a lot of different types of issues that come about from it. What do you normally see when somebody comes to you with a certain problem and it can't be explained?
You know, well, the first thing that comes to my mind with that is a part out of Jason's book where he woke up at night and there was this beautiful angelic being in the chair. Is that right, Jason? And then you asked if it was from the light and it said no. So I've dealt with a few people who have been working with extraterrestrials, and they have every classic symptom of an entity attachment. And as we work through that, we're finding out that these extraterrestrials or these reptilians are actually shape-shifting. They're raising up their vibration with false false knowledge, false feel-good tactics, and then they're sucking out their energy. And so I've seen a lot of that. And then going back to my practice, it usually relates back to some point of trauma where there's a missing soul piece, and they need to bring in that soul piece so they're more whole. But that is the number one thing that I deal with is people thinking that they're working with these guides or ETs of the light, and they're not. They're deceptive.
Yeah, lots of that. I get lots of information that comes in that says, "Oh, Chris, I'm here to help you." And I say, "No, you're not. Get out of here."
And you can sense it.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
If it's not source, I don't want nothing to do with you.
Yes.
That's basically it.
And I had one woman, she heard me on an interview, and she actually called in and asked if I used guides. And I was like, no, I don't use guides. It's just me and my higher intuition. Mm-hmm. She contacts me and she's like, oh no, like you have to have a session. You have to get hooked up with your guides. Da, 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 da. And it's like, but no. About a year and a half later, she calls me up crying. And I mean, she's a fantastic woman, but she calls me up just totally shaken because her guides had turned totally deceptive, or she finally realized they had turned totally deceptive. Oh
yeah, the guide situation is certainly that. Who can you trust in that capacity? Because you don't know, you just have to trust. So I've come to the point where, you know what, I know what I can trust, I know who I can trust, and that's what we trust. All of a sudden, I was working and something came in and said they were a Devi, okay, a deity, a Devi, a female deity here to help. And I said, I don't think so. And it kept on coming in. I'm like, I haven't invited you in, so what are you doing here? And my dowsing would get worse and worse and worse. And I said, okay, something's going on. And it was an infiltration. I had to ban it and get rid of it. Now, Zach, you've got a video that you want to show?
Yeah, well, it was about the ECETI Ranch, the most recent sighting that George put on his website. So I can share that with everybody.
I love this video concept. We can do all kinds of wonderful.
All right, so can everybody see that?
Got it.
Ready? Wait for it. There it goes. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black and Coast to Coast AM. This video was shot today, September 29, 2017 at ECETI Ranch up in Washington by Ryan Wenner. It's a panoramic shot he was taking of ECETI. Here's another. There it goes. The velocity is enormous. Here's the first video grab that we got from the video, and you can see it is a classic saucer shape, maintaining its shape throughout the video. It's not a bird, it's not a drone. It is an intelligently controlled craft of some kind. Here's the second grab that we got. Now, the thing is this. It is flying at about 500 feet, which would make this craft maybe 75 to 100 feet across. This video grab, as it is getting ready to start to turn left behind the trees, is one of the last ones that we could get. Here you can see again, it is maintaining its shape. This is the second to last grab that we got. Again, maintaining its shape. It's about a mile away at this point. Here in the last video grab, again, maintaining its shape, just before it clips behind the trees and makes a full circle. Now, we go back to the original video. This is slowed down. As you get ready for it, there it goes, and it flies behind the trees. Now, there are reports, I've had a lot of people look at this video this morning, that are saying that they can see it traveling back around behind the trees. I have not been able to make that out. I would enjoy checking everybody out in their comments to see what they can see here. All right. What we are going to do now is we are going to slow this down as slow as we can get it. And it gets more and more interesting the slower the video is. Now, these are the original clips. You need to understand that. This is the raw video Ryan shot on his iPhone. Now, we've slowed it down again. Now, this is getting really slow. Look at the object. It maintains its shape. The velocity is ginormous. Look at it as it flies down. Now, it is literally about a mile away and flies behind the trees. Slow it down again, even slower. This is not a bird. This is not a helicopter, plane. This is your classic flying saucer. Shot today, September 29th, 2017, by Ryan Wenner up at ECETI Ranch in Washington. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black and Coast to Coast AM. Now, enjoy this. Look at that. Don't forget to check out Fade to Black, where we talk about all things conspiracy, live Monday through Thursday over at jimmychurchradio.com. Follow, like, and subscribe. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Free shout out for Jimmy Church.
Yeah, little free plug for Jim.
Why not? Why not? Those videos. I mean, there so many of them on the internet. And when somebody sends me, I go, "Oh, another video of a UFO." I mean,
Now, recently,
that convicts me. That's for sure.
SETI Ranch.
Denice, you've been sitting nice and quiet. Anything to add?
Well, I had an interesting Arcturian experience that I'd like to get some views on. Chris is going, Arcturians.
Okay, I'm open.
Oh, a few years ago, I had a one of those quantum hypnosis healing therapy, regression therapies with Dolores Cannon's one of her students. And interestingly enough, I did not go into a past life, but what I did was I went straight up into an Arcturian starship. And what I gathered from that was I was actually projecting from that ship down into this earth body. But the very interesting part about this was the overwhelming emotion. I mean, the feeling of love. All I could do was bawl through the whole thing. It's all I could do is bawl. And she's like, "Why are you crying?" It's like, because the love, we cannot feel this love in this third dimension. We have no idea what this love feels like in the higher dimensions. So that was my really interesting Arcturian experience, and I'm just wondering what anybody.
Well, my concept of the Arcturians, I'd say almost any extraterrestrial type being, if you're not here to help, get out of the way. Okay, stop watching, stop looking and being looky-loos at a train accident and just leave us alone. But, I have some people who believe that the Arcturians are definitely here to help us. Well, if they are, get to work. Okay, that's my concept. Ultimately, we're going to help ourselves. Okay, that's where it's coming from. It's coming from our heart, our source, our own love that we need to experience. And you experience what love really feels like, okay? Let's call it true love. It's a feeling that a lot of people have never experienced, never will experience, but that is where this is all going, this whole ascension process, into that where you went, okay? So if they're here, great. If not, well, take a ticket and go park somewhere.
I kind of say that about everything, Chris. We just saw that video about that craft flying and the things people have talked about today. Denise talked about feeling, joy. But with all of this, what is the benefit? If this is supposed to be ascension and disclosure, isn't it to provide remedy to the physical realm here, to bring us this joy, to move us past the Babylonian slave model and all this kind of stuff? So what's the benefit is what I ask about all of this. And whoever's presenting the information, is it just another rabbit hole to distract us, to go down, to keep us, are we doing this for views and clicks and likes on YouTube? Or are we doing this because we want to remedy all life on Earth, and just not humans? I mean, the plants, the animals, they're manipulated too. So that's kind of a barometer for me.
Yeah, I mean, is this all just a bad joke?
Yeah.
Is it a learning experience? We've learned enough already. Let's go. Let's make it happen. Come on. Let's do this thing. No, I am seeing on a, with myself, my experience is more insight, more knowledge about what's happening around us that's affecting us here, is really coming forward a lot. So I am seeing it. We saw Harvey Weinstein get pulled up on the carpet. We're seeing some things happen. The bubble's there's gonna be a big explosion. There's gonna be something. I mean, you look at U.S., you look at Korea, you look at Russia, Iraq. I mean, the gauntlet's been thrown down. You look at what's happening in California, all of the storms that came through. There's so many things happening. Now you go look at the sun, okay? The solar storms that are happening are immense, and they're affecting us in certain ways, causing earthquakes, causing storms. And then you got weather manipulation. All kinds of things are culminating into something that's all of a sudden going to say enough. Let's put it that way. Holly, you have something you want to talk about that video?
Yes. So a friend of mine or an acquaintance was actually up there when that took place. And she went with the gentleman who filmed it and another young man. And they went on this hiking trail. They had to drive down by this lake. So it wasn't on the premises, but it was closer to Mount Adams. And there's actually a portal that they found. And as my friend got closer to the portal, she got a clear message not to go too close to it. And the two gentlemen actually looked back at her, and she was sort of like phasing in and out a little bit. But they actually found this portal, and there was like a key to the portal. She described it like a stone pizza box where you could slide it in and out. So I find that very interesting, and we're going to go check it out this summer. She knows right where it is. Yeah. Did you know about the portal, Barry?
I'd heard about that specific one, but when we were up there, actually this last conference when we met, I was talking a lot to like Tom Powell, and he was mentioning these kind of spots, these shivering kind of silver spots in the forest that a lot of the hunters say stay away from them. They're those portals, and you'll get lost in them. And that's where a lot of like the missing 411 people from David Pauletti's, what's happened to some of them, they wandered into these portals. So I've heard about that before. I didn't know about the one you were talking about, but man, that sounds pretty, the key thing sounds pretty cool.
I just started reading Tom's book.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom Powell wrote a book, The Edges of Science, and he lives right where I live in Oregon City. I did not get to meet him, but he has this book that I'm just about to jump into. And he was a science teacher at the high school, and he talks about all the portals up here, all the Sasquatch sightings, everything. I'm really excited to dive in.
Now, anybody listening to this show, if you go to ECETI and you fall in one of these portals because we talked about them, don't come looking at us, okay? We're not responsible if you get lost in a portal. We'll get you out, but we're not responsible.
I have a question. It's basically for Holly and Jason. Before you left, did any of you hear the Sasquatches hollering at night?
Yeah, I think it was the second night. I heard howling, and I think someone was trying to mess with us, but I don't think so. but going back to the UFO video, it was shot with an iPhone, right? That video was shot with an iPhone. I don't know if we can see this on the screen here. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Behind the cloud?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I got a lot of these shots, and it looks almost exactly the same as what was shot in the video, but further away. So when you go down there, it's very likely that you have to look at your pictures, take a bunch of pictures, and when you get home, you'll be shocked. I took about 3 or 4 different type of ship pictures, and you can't see them with your eyes because they're moving extremely fast. So that video, I don't think the person, even if they were looking right in that spot, I don't think their brain would have captured that movement. It was that fast. So you'll see like a blink in the corner of your eye, but you can't capture it, but the phone will capture it as a high enough shutter speed to catch it. So I found that video to be pretty amazing and pretty typical of what you're going to capture just with your regular devices there.
So this is something that people are capturing, and it's not a matter of, well, what's the credibility of the video? This is your video. Here it is. You know, you can take from that what you want. So this isn't an internet thing that's been put on. How many likes can you get off of it? This is source. This is right from the source.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just showing you the picture right from my cell phone. I mean, I didn't even put this on put it on any website yet. This is just strictly from my phone. And it's the same thing. So you just have to be open to it and take lots and lots of pictures. And you'll get a couple on the phones, especially.
You can sell them for millions of dollars on the internet.
Right.
China will buy them.
Again, I would bring up, though, about that, you know, so something's going on. How do we know who it is or what it is or what?
It doesn't matter.
Well, actually, can I just jump in? Because I forgot to say the story that Denice told. It seems that there's a lot of people that when they go into a past life experience or get hypnotized, they'll find themselves with other beings. For Denice, it was someone or a group they call the Arcturians, but she felt this immense love. I've heard these stories over and over again where even, let's say, like manted beings walk in and you just suddenly start crying. I've even had those experiences where a dimensional being came to me and I just couldn't stop crying with such happiness and joy to see it. And, you know, from a mental perspective, I have no idea who these beings are, but something deep inside of us knows who these beings are. And I believe that we live simultaneous lives, parallel lives in different dimensions, different times and space. And a lot of these beings, like the Arcturians or other cosmic brothers and sisters, they're not as bound as we are. As in, they know the connection to all their soul seeds around the multiverse, and they can check up on them here and there. And it's almost like visiting your family or visiting a part of yourself in another place. So when that connection happens, it's almost like you're looking at another version of you or a family member of yourself from a different time, from a different space, and you feel that connection, and that's where this joy and this experience comes from.
I think that's the key thing you said, is that they're not bound. So we're looked upon as slaves, looked upon, I mean, as above, so below. So you look at one time there was a lot of slavery going on this planet, and it gets deeper than just, you know, the slavery concept. We are slaves in different ways, slaves to time, slaves to work, slaves to whatever. So the whole slavery thing is more a reptilian kind of control, that we're enslaved to them in certain ways, and we can get, you know, really deep into that if we wanted to. But I think the concept of being free and sovereign to yourself, so you can feel those emotions, you can feel that love, and there's nothing hindering you from that. Because once you feel that, there's all the power that you're ever going to need to heal yourself or to be part of humanity, is feeling that love.
Yeah. And I'd like to read something that might, because we're all trying to find the answers. We're all trying to find, you know, why are we like this? Why are we getting these visitations? What's the point of having these things? All right. So I want to read something that was told to me. It's very short, and it goes, eons and eons before time began, many lands, many universes were drawn together by the spider's web. This spider's web was a way for many civilizations, many universes, to connect and communicate with one another. Unfortunately, these threads have been severed deliberately by those who would discover the connection and want to take control of different worlds themselves. So that was a message that was given to me almost 20 years ago. And when I asked them, well, who discovered the threads and took control of these worlds? The clear answer The reptilians.
Yes, yes. The reptilians are clearly out to conquer worlds, to gain power. That's clearly one of their objectives. Ken, what do you know about that?
Well, in my experiences with the reptilians, one of the things that they showed me was the reason that this reptilian influence, first of all, the reason why the reptilians have the characteristics that they do, but also their influence on this planet, is because of their birthing process. They, very much like reptiles on Earth, like lizards and snakes and alligators, they, when they have fertilized eggs, they are taken to a communal nursery and they are hatched without the parents ever meeting the children. And the children are raised in an environment where it's very competitive and dog eat dog, and they even have to fight over food sources. In some cases, they're also cloned for reproduction. But they wind up developing this, what we would view as a psychosis, because they have to fight to survive. And only the strongest ones do survive ultimately. And that's where this whole concept of survival of the fittest and competition and that kind of stuff comes from, that reptilian influence on Earth. All of this stuff that we see on our planet with sociopaths and psychopaths and competition and war, et cetera, it comes from the mind controlling of these reptilians that's been going on since the dawn of humanity on this planet. So these particular reptilians that I was working with were benevolent ones that had, let's say, evolved beyond that mindset with the help of other types of extraterrestrials. And it was their goal to change their society by changing the birthing process. And so that's part of the reason why they study our birthing process and our nurturing process and our emotions. They don't have emotions like we do either, because of this disconnect between the children and the parents and the whole process of their raising. So that's got to change in order for this reptilian influence to stop promulgating itself throughout the cosmos in a negative way.
Now, okay, so obviously they didn't get enough love. Okay. Now,
well, beyond that,
what's
worse than that?
Now the concept of people on the planet here, the royals, Justin Bieber, Donald Trump, everybody says, oh, they're reptilian. So when somebody says that, are they talking more that they have more reptilian traits than you and I? I mean, the reptilian traits: greed, power, lots of confrontiveness, argumentative, wanting power over, that type of thing.
Well, what I was told directly by these reptilians, and I found out later, people would, when I would share this publicly, which I didn't for many years, but when I started sharing what I was told directly by reptilians, they said, oh, you've read Zecharia Sitchin. I was like, I didn't know who that was. But what I was told was that these reptilians were master geneticists that came to Earth and engineered proto-humans to help harvest gold for them for various purposes, because monoatomic gold can be used for time travel and dimension travel. They actually spent about 1.5 years schooling me all about monoatomic gold and how it can be applied, because they said it remains the same through different dimensions of time and space. And so it has a lot of uses within these extraterrestrial civilizations. But in particular, they came here to harvest it to repair the atmosphere on the planet that had been destroyed in warfare. And this was a small group of reptilians, and they ultimately needed help in this harvesting. So they engineered these proto-humans that ultimately became us. And as we started evolving and becoming more psychically powerful, they were afraid that we would overtake them. And so they disconnected parts of our DNA to shut our psychic abilities down. And that's what they told me. This is what our scientists call junk DNA. And so we've had this legacy of this reptilian manipulation of the human form for thousands of years. And also we've been mind controlled from the very beginning to make us very fearful and limited and warlike, so that, and apparently this is their modus operandi that they do throughout the galaxy, is that they go and mind control civilizations when they're in primitive stages of development, so that when they develop advanced technology, they will be warlike and fearful, and those the reptilians can then approach those civilizations and trade key people in power, knowledge and information to maintain control, and also to utilize the technologies to further their warfare out in the galaxy. There's much more going on than that, but it's kind of in a nutshell of what this reptilian agenda is about. By
the way, anybody who wants to disconnect from reptilian mind control, you disconnect it from the higher subconscious. Go there and then disconnect it, and boom, it's gone. It works wonderful. Jason, why don't you pitch your book quickly? We're going to take a few more minutes. We don't want to do everything. We're going to do another show in a couple of weeks, so we don't want to get too far. Tell us about your book.
The book is called Forbidden Knowledge. You can see the poster behind me, Revelations of a Multidimensional Time Traveler. And basically it talks about my lifelong experiences with outer body experiences, connecting with different consciousnesses, which is extra dimensionals, alien type beings like the reptilians, information on the Greys, the Anunnaki, all conspiracy and also real life experiences. So it's basically I'm thrown into all these experiences without knowing anything, and basically I have to learn how to overcome these different energies and learn how to almost survive again in the outer worlds, in the astral worlds, sorry. And it's quite an interesting book, and it takes you along the shamanic journey that I followed, which is all about you have to heal yourself. And by healing yourself and going within, you take your control back. You release all these energies that are controlling you, manipulating you, and suddenly you have this clean line of information coming to you.
Where can we get a copy, my friend?
Amazon. You can get it from Amazon.com. Just look up Jason Quit.
Awesome. Looking forward to reading it. Denice, any last words?
Oh, I just want to say I read his book, and it's worth reading. So,
what did you take from the book? What did you get from it?
Well, it was interesting because there was a lot of correlation between his experiences and my experiences. So reading his book was affirming what I was getting with my experiences. So anytime you get that aha moment or confirmation, it's just, so helpful. So helpful.
Confirmation is key. In this type of work, confirmation is key. Holly, any last words, my dear?
Well, I wanted to go back really quick to Barry asking if we had heard anything at ECETI. And, when I'm in ECETI at night, I'm out of there. I am just blacked out. So, no, I didn't hear anything, but I did have a really amazing experience with the 6th dimensional Syrian lion beings. Now, those are some beings that I can trust. And, James Gilliland will call in the beings, and you can literally, I've had 3 or 4 experiences with them now when they come in, and it is absolutely this feeling of just pure love and joy and protection from these 14-foot lion beings. So I've seen the orbs, I've seen the ships, I've seen the lights under the glaciers, but my favorite from ECETI is the lion beings, for sure.
Barry, any last words, my friend?
No, I would just say when going out there, definitely keep an open mind and be aware of just the possibility of something that's furthering your consciousness when you're on that property. I think also another thing that's that the third day that you're out there, you start actually kind of going through a healing process. So that's something else I think to kind of keep in mind, that actually is brought up. So any kind of a conflict you might have had, just be prepared to deal with it the third day you're out there. But it's a healing, it's not an attack. So it's one of those things.
Awesome. Having said that, okay, so this was interesting. I really love the format. Zach and Denice, you guys are wonderful for providing And we love you to death, and we send you all kinds of wonderful thoughts your way. We're going to be back doing this again in a couple of weeks, and we're gonna dig into some more really juicy stuff about UFOs, about ET, and about experiences. And hopefully we're going to try and get Jimmy Church on. That guy's got a lot to say. I know he talks a lot, so we'd love to get him on. For A Quantum View, this is Chris Taylor. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are out of here.